Very pleased to welcome to the Clearwater Cleaning Solutions virtual broadcast studio, Karen Peterson from Post Pro Wrestling. Karen, thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me on today. Even though it's virtually, I'm not in Canada with you right now.
A lot of times I would say it's not the best to be here in February, but it's actually not too bad here. So you are missing out a touch, but virtually is working just fine for now. I want to talk about Stardom. And before we get into this, we've talked about this a little bit, but so the listeners know, my main, I guess, idea is the biggest pro wrestling company in the world right now kind of is unwatchable at times. And so there's a lot of very good pro wrestling out there. And I want to kind of highlight that. And Stardom last year, 2021, was the year of Stardom. It felt like there was a big breakthrough for the wrestling community in terms of finding out about Stardom. We're a month and 11 days into 2022. How has this year been for Stardom so far?
They're off to a good start. I mean, their next big show is coming up on Wednesday, February 23rd. And it's going to be Cinderella Journey in Nagaoka. The card's getting interesting, and they've already had their press conference, and we'll see where we go from there. But they're like they as a company have been one of the ones that have been able to figure out how to not just survive the pandemic, but thrive during it in a safe and equitable manner, and one that isn't essential yet expendable at the same time.
Okay, care to expand on that?
Well, I live in Florida, for those who don't know, and I also live in Orlando, the home of NXT. So when the pandemic started back in 2020, there was this large push by WWE to get approval from the Florida legislation to be considered an essential business. While we were at home, I work for a large public university, and I was working remotely and watching NXT get the permission along with WWE to, work both in Orlando and in Tampa. And then from that point in time, Nick Khan came in and the hatchet started falling, and they started doing budget cuts. Lots and lots and lots of budget cuts, which I get. You're not turning a profit, and that's fine. But when you fight to be considered an essential business, you have to take care of the employees that work for your company.
Right.
And in the last 2 years, we've seen, I'm guessing, over 200, if not more, employees just in that one company alone lose their livelihood. And unfortunately for WWE, many other companies are benefiting as a result. Thankfully, people are they're falling on their feet. They're finding places they can call home, or they're just being kings and queens of the indies and having an amazing time.
Yeah. And I think like that there's definitely room for a lot of wrestling out there now, especially with all these people who have come up. And you bringing that up reminded me how much I hated how WWE handled the first part of the pandemic, and just how like unwatchable a lot of that was because of, for lack of a better term, the heebie-jeebies that it gave me just watching how they were trying to shoehorn everything in and all of that. So thank you for reminding me of that repressed memory.
I'm so sorry to bring back that trauma of 2020.
Yeah.
It was, at first, I gave them the benefit of the doubt that they were doing the best and making the most of what they could with the situation. They were keeping people employed. They were, doing empty arena shows, and it was fine for a while. And then it wasn't fine. It was very not fine. And as someone, I've been in Orlando since 2014. I discovered NXT in 2014. So it was one of those things where I was a bleeding black and gold girl. So even in the last year with the shift to 2.0, the current NXT, it's not for me anymore, unfortunately. Even though I have people I love that wrestle there, it's not my NXT.
Yeah.
No, and it hasn't been for a long time.
No, it's unrecognizable, and it's too bad what's happened there. With Stardom, I have a confession, is that I consider myself a hardcore wrestling fan, but my Stardom knowledge is very much lacking. And so I kind of want a little bit of help with that in this interview today. Okay. Basic question. And this is, again, to let you know the level of stupid that you're dealing with today. One of the things I greatly appreciate about different wrestling promotions is getting a little bit creative with belt names. Dragon Gate did this. Stardom has done this. One of the issues I have is I am again, stupid. And some of them, you're
not
difficult.
Stupid. You're learning.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. You are definitely someone who works in education. But well, yeah. with the different title names, though, can you just kind of run through which ones, like what they all mean and everything like that?
All right, we'll start at the top and work our way down.
Okay.
Now, there's two schools of thought on the top two belts. Some have approached as one's a world championship, the other one's equivalent to your intercontinental championship. So you have the Wonder of Stardom. It's the red belt. It's currently carried by Shuri, and she won it at Stardom Dream Queendom back in December off of Utami Hayashishita, who shouldered that belt and the company for over a year prior. So for most people, World of Stardom, World Championship, top belt. Now, there's also like the 1B, which would be your Wonder of Stardom Championship. It's the white belt. It is I always compare it to the Intercontinental Championship because I think of New Japan's, God, I miss that belt. Gorgeous Intercontinental Championship, or even WWE's Intercontinental Championship when it was the white strap, because that belt was mint. And those two belts tend to be most women who go for the world championship and eventually get it often will get the Wonder of Stardom Championship first. So previous holders of the Wonder of Stardom Championship would be Kairi Hojo, Momo Watanabe, Tam Nakano, Julia, and right now is Saya Kamitani. There are other people. Mayu Iwatani's held it. I believe Io Shirai may have held it. So it's one of those ones that has a very storied lineage. Same thing with and then you have like the World of Stardom Championship, which I always look at as A and then like A, B adjacent. But some people are very much, no, they're the same. Some people are like, no, one's 1 and one's 2. They're the top 2 singles champions.
Okay.
At least in my mind.
Okay.
Now, after that, you have your tag team championship. That's the Goddesses championship. They're black straps, shaped like stars. And the one thing, it took a while for me to catch on to this. One, the main plate is gold with silver wings. And the other one's actually the inverse, where it's silver with gold wings.
Mm.
So I always appreciate it when a tag team either is thrown together and they make the effort to make matching gear. I'm a big matching gear girl when it comes to tag teams and trios and all that stuff. So in Stardom, right now, Fukuoka Double Crazy, Hazuki, and Koguma, they're the Goddesses of Stardom champions. They relieved it from Shuri and Julia back in January. I'm very curious to see how their upcoming match is going to play into it and if they're going to be able to have a long run with the belt, because, you know, when both of them came back from retirement, it was this whole big thing, especially for Hazuki, who had retired in 2019, and her and Koguma started in the company when they first started was back, I want to say 2013.
Okay.
When they were both really, really young. The trios title is the Artists of Stardom. They're all 3 different colors. So the most creative incorporation of it I've seen is Donna Del Mondo's Maika, Himeka, and Natsupoi. They've each taken one of the colored belts and made matching gear style in those signature colors.
Mm.
So one's orange, one's blue, and one's pink. But the base of all uniforms is the design is the same, white base, but the accents are different, which is really cool. Then after that, there's 3 other belts. There is the Future of Stardom Championship, which is, it's your rookie's belt. There's 2 stipulations on it right now. I believe your career has to be less than 5 years professionally, or you have to be under the age of 20. So right now, Hanan is carrying it. She's 17, but she's one of the ones that got her start in the Stardom Dojo while she was in middle school. So it's her first time carrying it. She got the belt at Queendom back in December off of Ruaka, who for those two, they're the same age. They started around the same time. So I have a feeling that Hanan and Ruaka are going to be the forever rivals of their year of young folk. It's heartbreaking because those girls, and I call them girls because they are young enough to be my child. Because I have friends that have kids that are same age as me, but their kids are in their early 20s now. So I'm like, I can say someone's my son or my daughter or my child or my whatever, because I am of that age where I could theoretically have kids this age. There's also the SWA Championship, which was a belt. I want to say it was from a different company that Stardom either took over or absorbed when they eventually merged and became Stardom. But the premise of that belt, it's designed to be that whoever the holder of the belt has to fight someone of a different nationality. So right now, Tekla who's Austrian. She and Mina Shirakawa had a match back in January to determine who would be the next champion, because Shuri chose to vacate it after getting the red belt. So the good thing about Tekla is that she's one of the only, well, I think right now she's the only pure gaijin that's left in Stardom.
Okay.
Because, B. Priestley was there for a while, but, she left last year to go to NXT UK as Blair Davenport. Borders haven't opened yet, so no one's coming in. And prior to Tekla taking the belt, the only other people that would have carried it was Shuri, who carried it for just as long as Utami had the red belt, because she's half Filipina, and then Julia's half Italian. So it was one of those things where the options are very limited if you're going to fight against other people.
Right.
So right now it's I wanted Shirakawa to get it just because in the press conference last month, she made this whole big deal that she wanted to not just win the belt, but she wanted to go to abroad and not only defend the belt, but start recruiting for Cosmic Angels, like in the United States, in Canada, in the UK, down in Australia. She was ready to literally board a plane with the belt and go round up people and start scouting and headhunting, which I thought was really great.
Yeah.
So now it's going to be one of those things where Tekla has the belt. I'm curious to see how long she's going to have it. I think until the borders open up where people with new visas can come into Japan, she might have it for a while, because Shuri also had it for a very long while after she got it off of B. Priestley. So until there's a larger foreign wrestler influence within Stardom, it's going to be one of the things that I think Tekla will have it for a long time. Okay. And then the final one that's not a tournament would be the high speed title, which currently Starlight Kid has it. That belt was, I believe it was Neo Pro Wrestling. Again, another company, a belt from another company that was brought into Stardom and taken over when Stardom got established. When Starlight Kid was, prior to she joining and becoming into the dojo, she would go to some Stardom shows by herself. So she would watch, and the high speed division is what always had her attention. So for her to finally get the belt, and she's held it multiple times, but her more successful run is right now as a heel. Largely because whomever challenges her for the belt, she makes a custom mask in their color scheme. And when she defeats them, she pins them to the inside of her entrance cape. So she literally walks into a venue with the heads of her fallen opponents.
I love that.
So at Wrestle Kingdom, when she was the one who got tapped for Oedo Tai to walk in, I was like, she's going to walk in with those masks in her coat, and everyone's just like, oh my God, what are all those masks? And I'm like, if y'all don't know, you're going to know now, because that's what she does. Whenever she wins one, she takes that mask, she'll pose with whoever she's defeated at the very end, and then next time you see her, it's inside the cape.
I love that.
Her next opponent will be Natsupoi, she had defended against Natsupoi. Her next opponent is going to be Azumi. So she and Azumi have drawn last time they wrestled, because it was a 3-way involving Koguma, and Koguma ate the pin.
Oh, okay.
And then Natsupoi came back. She was off for half of January doing a stage play for one of Bushiroad's products called Assault Lily. So it was a live action incarnation of one of their products. I think it's an anime trading card game sort of thing.
Okay.
And on February 1st, they wrestled to a time limit draw. And then Natsupoi said, you know what? I'll come back to being high speed champion again at some point. I'm going to go challenge for the white belt instead. So she's challenging Saya Kamitani for the white belt.
Oh, okay.
So that's the setup right now.
Okay.
Now, at the end of the month, is on the 23rd is going to be their monthly pay-per-view. Whether it'll have English commentary or not, we don't know yet. It seems that Stardom's not doing it for every single large event, even though they do make the effort to subtitle their Korakuen shows and all their tour stops, but they're on tape delay.
Okay.
So it's one of those things where sometimes if there's other Japanese speakers that are on at the same time, we'll all try to hop onto the old tweet machine and start trying to throw out translations. And they also have their own English account. So if you're not already following we_r_Stardom, and you're wanting to learn about Stardom in English, if you don't speak Japanese, that's the account to follow. Or, you can follow me. It's fine. I don't mind.
Yeah.
just please don't treat me like Google Translate, be like DMing me and be like, hey, what does this mean?
Right.
I'll be like, go use Google Translate or here are my rates, whichever one you prefer.
I do appreciate the English subtitles when I see videos from them, and that is something that I am dying for New Japan to incorporate as well. Like I don't want to say it's a simple thing, but it seems like such a simple thing that just helps open up an entire other audience to your product.
It's one of those things where people don't realize that while like machine translation and live translation, it can be very taxing, especially because the complexities of English. You have your British English, your Canadian English, your American English, your Australian and Kiwi English. You've got English from other speaking countries around the world. So always the nuances, and unfortunately for Japanese fans, sometimes sarcasm is very much lost in translation. So it's one of those things where, also depending on the resources available in the company, to my knowledge, there's maybe 5 at the most completely bilingual people working in all of New Japan.
Oh, wow.
They're still a very small company. And the one that we always see the most is either Chris Charlton, who does like 20 other things at the same time, in addition to commentary with Kevin Kelly. And then there's a woman, I believe her name is Mizuka. She did for those who don't know, she helped create the New Japan English textbook that they released last year back in the fall. So, but pretty much it's not just being able to translate it live or, make sure that it's accurate, but it's also timing it and, video production. So it's one of those things where it's like, it would seem like something simple.
Right.
But it's all, like everything else, it just comes down to money, resources, time, especially when you're having like 20 Korakuen shows in the span of a month.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's only so much, and people don't realize translating can get very exhausting. Like it can, even if you're fluent, mentally your brain wears out and you get tired.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, no, that would be quite the process for sure. No, that and I'm getting selfish. Like I remember it. We're not too far removed from having to watch New Japan shows on like Ustream at 3 a.m. and just getting whatever we can. So the fact that we have English commentary at all, I should definitely be happy about that. You mentioned for Stardom that there's a big show coming up on the 23rd. Would this be a good entry point for people who are looking to get into Stardom, or is there an event that's happened in the last few months that would be a good kind of, hey, this is the time to jump in on this thing?
It's the whole adage, there's no time like the present, right?
Right.
So if you want a little better understanding of what's leading up to what's happening at the end of the month, I believe now that the broadcast embargoes are over, they should be on Stardom World. Watch the January show that was on the 29th, very end of the month, and then go back, or if you're really ambitious, go back to December and watch Queendom.
Okay.
It was their, like, other than their show in March, which was the All-Star Cinderella, which was their big 10th anniversary show. That's the show where all the big title changes happened. There was some big reveals that happened around that time. And it was like, I mean, I could say go back all the way to the 5-Star Grand Prix in September, go back to January of last year. But yeah, I would say Queendom, can't miss.
Okay.
If you're on the New Japan World and you want to get a sampler and you have not yet seen January 5th, the tag team match there are so many layers to that tag team match. Kevin Kelly and Chris Charlton did their best to unpack all that. There was still a lot of stuff that was not unpacked about that particular tag match.
Yeah, and that phenomenal match too, by the way.
Oh, so good. Everybody had to do a high spot, and I love that every single one of them did one.
Yeah. But yeah, from my understanding, with all the kind of knots to unravel during that, it's basically, if you had like 8 minutes to explain, okay, well, here's Rock, Austin, Mr. McMahon, and Triple H. Here's everything that happened in their story, and this match is going on at the same time. Like there's a lot of like interconnected going on in that bout. Yeah.
Yeah, one of my only caveats about that particular match at Wrestle Kingdom, they had a video package for all the other big matches. I would have loved a quick and dirty 30-second, here's why these people teaming together is amazing and dramatic and somewhat problematic. Purely because of the last year, for Mayu Iwatani, she lost Starlight Kid in a bet to Oedo Tai, and then Starlight Kid went to Oedo Tai, and her star just shot right off to the part where She went from being the lowest ranked member of Oedo to the one they're using for all the marketing, all the PR events. A lot of them, they're not putting Natsuko, who's the actual leader. They're using Starlight Kid as the only masked wrestler in the entire company. You know, the drama between Mayu and Tam Nakano. Mayu rescued Tam when Oedo Tai threw her to the sideway. And then Tam turned around and created Cosmic Angels and took off on her own. Saya Kamitani used to be part of Stars, and she got poached by Queen's Quest. So it's one of those things where it's Mayu and all of her exes.
Right.
and none of them can see, like, Mayu's the mountain for all of them. None of them can beat her.
Oh, okay.
They've either gone to a draw or they've lost.
Okay.
And then, I didn't mention this earlier when we were doing the titles. There are 2 big tournaments in Stardom. One's the Cinderella Tournament, which is usually held in the late spring. It's single day, single elimination tournament, kind of like the New Japan Cup. The winner gets a wish granted, gets to wear a big Cinderella ball gown. It's kind of like if you were to win the New Japan Cup and not go for the main title, if you were to choose the Intercontinental, a lot of people tend to go for the white belt instead of the red belt, but some people go straight for the red belt. It's fine. And then the 5-star Grand Prix, kind of like the G1 Climax, that winner tends to be, in this particular case, when Shuri won it, she's like, I have this briefcase. And she decided in September that she was closing out the show in December. She's like, I will honor every loss I had in the 5-star Grand Prix, but this briefcase and me, we're going to Ryogoku. And she did. She defended it against all the people she lost to, and she won the whole darn thing.
Nice. Now, if there was one of the performers with Stardom who I like, if I had come across her when we were in Tokyo a couple of years ago, I wouldn't have said anything because you don't do that. But after I would have geeked out a little bit. It would have been Mayu Iwatani. Is she kind of like the ace of the company right now?
For those who watch New Japan, she's your Tanahashi.
Okay.
She's the icon.
Yeah.
You could also call Utami the ace of the company because Utami uses the same moniker that Tanahashi uses, which is Itsuzai, which is like the once in a century talent. So it's one of those things where I always see it as Mayu is Tanahashi, and then in my mind, Utami is your Okada.
Okay.
The young super rookie that, has done all the things within like the first couple of years of their career. Because, even with Okada, he's held the version 4 belt multiple times. He formally sent it off when he finally won at Wrestle Kingdom. So it's like, what else is Okada going to do?
Right.
He's going to go be a tag champion with Yoshihashi?
Yeah.
He's going to go be a never 6-man?
Yeah. By the way,
go into Super Juniors. That's
exactly.
Yeah,
he's gonna cut down and
he's gonna cut himself off at the knees to start.
Yeah. You talked about the belts earlier. I understand the want for new and everything like that. The IWGP Championship was perfect, and the Intercontinental title belt was perfect, and what they have now isn't. I was so disappointed that they went back to it.
It's grown on me. And that is thanks to one man and one man alone. Where is he? Where's my man? Mr. Shingo Takagi. That man made that belt. I didn't like it when Ibushi had it. I didn't like it when Ospreay had it. I didn't like it when Ospreay had a fake version of it saying that he was the real champion. Mm-hmm. But there was something about Takagi with that belt. I think that belt is designed for a wider waisted guy.
Right.
Like the other ones, they're all very slim. So it kind of looks too big on them. And Ibushi in particular, it looks comically big because he's so lean and cut.
Yeah.
It's like when you put like pants that are on that are too big and they just like fall right off. Like I kept waiting for the belt just to go whoop and just like slide right down his legs.
Look, it's the only thing that can make Ibushi's abs not look perfect. And I don't appreciate that. And it's hard to make those abs look not perfect. Right?
I mean, covering them is part of the problem.
Yeah.
Just so we're clear.
I said that
from an aesthetic perspective, not being thirsty. I'm just stating facts. The man is built different.
Mm-hmm. We went to the last WrestleMania that was in Dallas, and we saw him wrestling for Evolve and all of those things. And for whatever reason, that's still the wrestler that my wife brings up. Can't quite put a finger on it. That's the one that for whatever reason has just stuck in her mind.
He is a very attractive man.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, not one of my top attractive. I mean, I admit he's attractive. Is he like in my wheelhouse? He's pretty, and I have a problem with guys that are prettier than me. He can't be prettier than me. Ibushi, I love you. You're too damn pretty.
Okay, that's fair. Well, agree to disagree, I suppose. But we watched him wrestle a stuffed animal for 15 minutes. So that tends to stick with someone after a little bit. But back on track here. In terms of some of the different storylines to watch, you've outlined a couple, but what are some of the main ones that we can watch out for going into Feb 23?
Well, two of the ones you're going to want to keep an eye on is the arrival of Prominence, who were formerly of Ice Ribbon, that have decided to come. And the Prominence is, when they left Ice Ribbon last year, they decided they were going to be a death match quintuplet, but they've decided to bring their brand of violence to Stardom. Namely, because once Julia left, in their mind, in the story that they're telling right now, Julia was the linchpin or the straw that broke the camel's back. When she left, everything went downhill. So they're coming with a vendetta against Julia, and anyone who aligns themselves with Julia, meaning Donna Del Mundo as a unit, are now targets. The other concern I have is that we are now in possibly a Donna Del Mundo is fine situation where Julia, when she had injured her neck and had to drop out of the 5-star Grand Prix last fall, while she was on the shelf, a mysterious masked assailant showed up and started beating up the rookies for Cosmic Angels. It was revealed at the very end of December, after every monthly pay-per-view, the masked assailant would show up with one person or two people or just by themselves, beating people up. It was namely Lady C, Mai Sakurai, and Suki Wakayama. And it turned out at the Christmas year-end special, the masked assailants came to attack them one more time while Tam and Mayu were in the ring. Tam and Mayu super kicked the leader, and it was revealed to be Julia. So Julia bringing in Tekla and Mirai to join Donna Del Mundo. Again, Donna Del Mundo is all wrestlers who were brought in by Julia from other promotions outside of Stardom. Currently, no members of DDM are Stardom Dojo graduates. But the problem is now Julia's brought in two very familiar faces to her in her life prior to Stardom. So for me, I'm wondering if there's going to be a fractioning or a splitting of the group, because Julia is also now in the situation where she's the leader, but she's not the champion. Shuri is. And Shuri's been busy tagging with Maika, Himeka, and Natsupoi, while Julia's been preoccupied with her new friends that she brought in this year. So is it going to be, will it come to a head at some point where they have to split? Or will they all find a way to mend the fences and remember that they are DDM first and their personal business comes after?
Oh, okay.
The other one is that, as I mentioned with Starlight Kid getting taken into a Uedo tie, because Mayu Iwatani lost her in a bet, because that's a thing. Shortly after Starlight Kid got absorbed into a Uedo tie, Natsuko Tora blew out her knee in a match against Utami for the World Stardom Championship, and she's been on the shelf ever since. Only recently has Natsuko come back at Queendom for big entrances for Momo Watanabe turning heel, and she's been seen more around ringside as a second, but she's not back yet. She hasn't been given a scheduled return date. But in her absence, even though Saki Kashima, one of the other members of Uedo Tai, who was also in Stars, turned on Mayu Iwatani, joined Uedo Tai. You see this, there's this pattern. Mayu is kind of like Okada in the sense that people in her stable keep betraying her and leaving her. And then she's just like, no, everything's fine. Really. It's fine.
Yeah.
But since Natsuko's been out, Saki, even though she's probably one of the more senior members of Uedo Tai, has kind of taken a back seat to Starlight Kid, who's supposedly the lowest ranked in the group. But Starlight Kid was also the one who finally pulled Momo Watanabe's strings enough to drag her down into darkness and have her, Momo, turn on Queen's Quest, where she nailed Azumi in the head with a chair to win a match.
Oh, okay.
So it's one of those things where when Natsuko comes back, will Starlight Kid, or will it become another thing where there will be infighting within Oedo Tai? If you're an Oedo Tai fan and you know me, you know I'm sorry to say this, but it's a possibility.
Yeah.
I know you don't want to hear it, but that's the truth. There's no honor among thieves. You need to remember that. Other than that, the other groups, Queen's Quest is working on gaining numbers now that they lost Momo. Cosmic Angels, they're doing fine. They've got plenty of people. And then Stars we're hoping that Saya Ida, there's like tall Saya who's like the Wonder Storm champion, but there's this little Saya who's like super, super, super jacked, but also very, very, very short. But she also blew out her knee when she was future Stardom champion, and she's been on the shelf. When Hazuki finally decided to join Stars last year after she had been back in the company for a few months, Saya Ida couldn't contain her excitement, and she ran with her busted knee, ran from the back in Korakuen and like dove into the ring with everybody, and then just started crying because she was just so happy. So we're also waiting on a return table for her. When she comes back, will she go back for the future championship? I don't think so, but I don't know where they're going to put her, because I don't know if they'll be pushing her for a singles championship or pushing her towards one of either the trios championship or the tag championship.
Okay. Now, in terms of following Stardom, a credit to you, because your reports on Post Wrestling are phenomenal and do a good job of giving a lot of this backstory. But also for someone who, if 920 yen a month and whatever that converts to wherever you're living, might be a bridge too far given gestures aggressively at the world around them. The YouTube show that they have, they put up about half an hour every now and then. Is that enough to be able to follow along with this, or what's the quality of that, I guess?
If you're interested in, before investing, I would say go to Stardom official's YouTube channel, because the episodes they put on, that is what they air on broadcast television. So it's kind of like how New Japan, to draw another New Japan parallel, that's what they would do with their Roku version of it, where it's like this digested version, or it's very theme specific. Sometimes they do it specifically about one particular wrestler. Sometimes they focus on a certain match or a certain series or a tournament. But if you're not sure about dropping the money yet, follow their official website or their official YouTube channel, because they have so much content there.
Okay, that is good to know, and it seems like a worthy investment to get into it, because, like I said before, Stardom certainly appears to be kind of destined for a big breakout, or I guess in the midst of a big breakout. In terms of the company and the direction of things, is there something you'd like to see changed or maybe done a little bit differently?
Now, this is just personal preference. If they are eventually going to commit to having English commentary, I want a female on commentary.
That would seem to be a logical ask, yeah.
When they do the Japanese commentary teams for the bigger shows in particular, they have not just Miki Motoi, who does commentary also for New Japan, but she also, for one of the shows back in the fall last year, she was the lead commentator. She was doing play-by-play and not just color commentary. But they also have retired wrestlers that come. They have Yuzuki Aikawa, who's one of the Stardom originals that was like Tam. She was an idol, a grabber idol that was turned into a wrestler. They have someone from Bushiroad. Oh God, I'm going to say her name wrong. Aina Aiba, who does a lot of stage plays and voice work and a lot of their anime characters, who also does a lot of YouTube content with the wrestlers for Bushiroad on commentary. So it's like they have lots of female presence on the Japanese commentary. Occasionally, they've also tried doing this recently, is that when they have English commentary, they have the bilingual wrestlers, once they finish their match, participate. So like they had Mina Shirakawa on one time. They had Tsuki Wakayama another time. Waka Tsukiyama. Am I saying her name right? Yeah. Yes. Tsukiyama. Yeah. Waka Tsukiyama. So they've had them, but it's not a consistent thing.
Okay.
And I mean, it's good because usually the gentleman that they bring in to do the English commentary for Stardom, when it's not on a New Japan show, Mark Pickering and Stuart Fulton, have some semblance of Japanese proficiency, so they're able to do the bilingual translation. They're able to give program notes and explain what's going on. And also, Kevin Kelly and Chris Charlton, when Stardom girls go over to New Japan shows, they're throwing together facts and information and providing that information in English. But what I would love to see is someone that isn't, I hate to say it this way, a white man on English commentary.
Right. No, that's
on women's wrestling.
Yeah.
I want women discussing women's wrestling.
Yes, that seems like a pretty easy ask. I would suggest. In terms of like what could be next for Stardom, we obviously there's been a bit of work with New Japan with Wrestle Kingdom and stuff like that. I understand different TV deals for different promotions makes that a little bit challenging. But do you see a world where one day those two may commingle maybe a little bit more than what we've been able to see so far?
Well, I'm going to put this out first and foremost. I am very much against the idea that New Japan needs a women's division. I do not want New Japan absorbing Stardom and making them part of their company and part of their roster. One of the things that Stardom fans and New Japan fans, while there is, it's a Venn diagram, while there is some crossover in the middle, there are members of those fandoms that very much like their wrestling the way it is.
Right.
That, the Stardom fans want just Stardom, New Japan fans want just New Japan. If Bushi Road could negotiate something akin to Cyber Fight, where they have a singular platform like Wrestle Universe, where you have one high definition, outstanding video work all the time, and have it readily available in multiple languages, that would be the thing. But the trick is, again, if both Stardom and New Japan are able to negotiate with their respective television deals, because that's where the real money is in Japan. While outside of Japan and like a lot of Western countries, streaming is now taking over cable and broadcasting. A lot of people are, cutting cable and just moving on to online. But in Japan, the bread and butter still comes from that golden time, prime time ad revenue. So it's one of those things where it's very difficult. If they could find an umbrella company that could make all of that happen, and make these streaming interfaces better. Not that New Japan World and Stardom World aren't good, but like everything else, they could be better.
Yeah.
So I know people want one-stop shopping, and especially with, for example, Cyber Fight with Wrestle Universe, you have 4 promotions for the same cost of 1.
Yeah.
And that to a lot of people is a very big selling point.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I'm with you. I don't want them to be like Stardom is all of a sudden the New Japan women's division, just for simple math purposes. I like that. Like you can have quite a few Stardom matches. If you just moved a Stardom card onto New Japan one, as much as I like New Japan, they're long enough. So I don't need all of those matches. And then we're taking time away from performers who don't need to have time taken away.
Correct. And that was one of the other things where it's like, the way I look at it is that, if you want to make it a WWE comparison, is that we're always as fans, we're always calling for another Man Classic, or we're calling for another Evolution. If you find a women's promotion, and it's not just Stardom, there are promotions here in the United States that have all women's promotions, like Shimmer, or oh god, I'll have to look it up and give it to you after. But there's one in Texas that's run by Thunder Rosa. I want to say it's Mission Pro Wrestling. But there are all women's promotions. Throw your money at those. Yeah. If Joshi isn't your thing, that's okay. But, there's also plenty of promotions in Japan that I'm still learning about. I'm still learning more about Senjo, which was started by Meiko Satomura. I'm learning about Seedling. I'm learning about Marvelous, because Marvelous sent Takumi Iroha over for the 5-star Grand Prix. And I was like, oh my gosh, she's the most amazing thing ever. But it's one of those things where it's like, I can only, as a person who's still working during a pandemic, I can only afford so many streaming services before I have to choose between feeding myself or waking up at 2:00 in the morning to watch a broadcast for another show. Yeah.
Yeah, no. And and that's one of the honestly, one of the holdups that I've had with Stardom is that I was a work casualty during this pandemic. And I as much as I would love to justify it, I just can't really right now, but I'm happy that the YouTube channel is as
definitely
as
dive headlong into that YouTube channel. They have so much stuff.
Okay. We've seen Tokyo Joshi Pro team up with AEW. Obviously, we talked about before, those relationships are a little bit different right now because of, again, the pandemic and everything like that. But do you think we could see a world someday where Stardom has that sort of a relationship with someone on this side of the planet?
Well, now that Ring of Honor is currently in limbo, they're planning on coming back with Super Card of Honor in March during Mania weekend. Because for me, that's how I learned about Stardom, was when they had the Super Card of Honor and they had the first Women of Honor tournament, and Kagetsu was in it, Hana Kimura was in it, Mayu was in it, and they had brought a whole bunch of girls over. Unfortunately, that night I was at NXT Takeover. It was a great takeover, so I'm not mad about it. But trying to find those matches afterwards was a bit of a challenge. And then seeing them again at the G1 Supercard at Madison Square Garden, both as the dark match and then Mayu's match against Kelly Klein for the Women of Honor Championship, I was like, I need to start learning about this because I can't get enough of it.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where it's just like, would I like to see them work more with New Japan? Yes. I think if they do big stadium shows like they had the MetLife Dome shows back in September, and they had exhibition matches on there. If they keep that kind of format, I think it'll be great.
Okay.
Do I want to see them displacing matches like, say, at Dominion, they put like the World of Stardom Championship on that card? I'd rather not, because again, like you said, there are plenty of people on the New Japan roster that are already fighting for spots on there. Here in the States, once travel opens up, I wouldn't be opposed to New Japan Strong being that platform where, until Stardom can get their own large enough following here in the States where they could run a show on their own, working with New Japan Strong to bring those matches over. I don't know how that would work from a broadcast perspective, because again, different broadcast company, but their exhibition matches at the Dome shows are on New Japan World. When they did Madison Square Garden show, I believe Mayu's match is still on there. I don't know if the 6-woman match was on there, but I think Ring of Honor put it on their YouTube page afterwards.
Okay.
But it's one of those things where since New Japan is their sibling company, and again, with Rev Pro being the U Japan adjacent brand in the UK with a women's division, those would be two possible avenues for them.
Okay. Thank you very much for all of this. You've been extremely generous with your time, and I do see that your dog is telling you to wrap it up here a little bit.
She hasn't gotten mouthy yet where she start growling at me, so we're okay.
Okay.
But I think it might be time for me to take her for another walk soon.
Okay. Well, I will let you go, but thank you so much for all of this, and I hope to have you on next time and have maybe a few more informed questions than just, hey, what is this?
Well, I would love to come back should you want to have me on again.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. This has been awesome. Thank you very much. Quickly, where can people find your work?
If you want to find me, you can go over to Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, and YouTube at Hey Karen Sensei. Follow me along. I am still learning about Stardom along with everything else. I also, please, my only caveat is don't treat me like Google Translate and send me things for you to translate, because I'll tell you to figure it out yourself. But other than that, come along for the ride. I like helping bridge the language gap between Japanese fans and foreign fans. So,
well, you do an amazing job of it, and we greatly appreciate it. So thank you very much, and enjoy your dog time now.
Thank you.